Good afternoon, America. I'm Eric Erickson. Thanks for tuning in. These are the 4 things you need to know this afternoon. As always, we're cutting through the noise, getting through the truth behind today's headlines. Let's dig in. Up first, the president is doing a major shift in U.S. policy on Ukraine. President Trump has announced a new deal to send advanced weapons technology to Ukraine. There's a twist. The bill is going to be picked up by NATO allies in Europe, not U.S. taxpayers. It's going to include advanced Patriot missile batteries as well. The president's plan is to have the United States manufacture the weapons, deliver them to NATO, and then NATO will decide how to distribute them to Ukraine. The president emphasized that this approach is a significant change from prior years when the U.S. shouldered most of the financial burden for arming Ukraine. The president also issued a warning to Vladimir Putin. If Russia doesn't agree to a peace deal within 50 days, the U.S. will impose 100% secondary tariffs on any country that continues trading with Russia. This means that countries like India, will see their trade to the United States deeply, deeply targeted, and it's going to target oil and gas revenue, which makes a huge chunk of the Kremlin's budget in places like India and elsewhere that trade with them. This marks a notable pivot, if I can talk today. The president has been skeptical of endless U.S. involvement in Ukraine, but he's also made it clear he wants to see Russia pressured to the negotiating table. By shifting the financial leverage, he's trying to balance supporting Ukraine with protecting American taxpayers and their interests. The bottom line here is that the president is betting that European money and American weapons, plus the threat of tough tariffs, will force Putin to rethink his strategy. Whether it works remains to be seen, but it's a bold rethinking on how to deal with a war that's dragged on for a number of years now. Our second story is about the next big legislative battle in Washington, D.C. Prepare yourselves. The House and Senate are going to consider another reconciliation package that'll allow them to pass more tax and spending changes with a simple majority. No filibuster allowed. Now, the Senate passed its version of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act by the narrowest of margins. Vice President Vance broke it with a 50-50 tie, was able to get over the finish line. Some moderate Republicans opposed deep cuts, and that complicated its passage in the Senate. Others wanted more Medicaid reform. They didn't get it. To do another reconciliation package, the Speaker suggests there could actually be 2 more reconciliation packages before the midterms. It'd be a very heavy lift. Already, House Republicans claim they want more spending cuts, which the Senate had trouble doing. The Senate right now, for its part, and John Thune, the majority leader, says he's focused on the rescission package to kill roughly $10 billion in spending, and he'll rethink the reconciliation package at a later date if it should come up. And for perspective, they're having trouble getting enough Republican votes for just $10 billion in cuts. The challenge is to deliver on promises of fiscal responsibility without alienating key constituencies, and they got to get the votes in the Senate. Expect a fierce debate in the coming weeks as Republicans try to keep their coalition together and Democrats push back in advance of a new reconciliation package. The outcome is going to shape the economic landscape for years to come. Well, our third story is the story I keep saying I don't care about, yet have to keep talking about it because it actually is big national news, the political shakeup in New York City. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo, after losing the Democratic primary to a Democratic socialist, has decided to stay in the mayoral race as an independent candidate. Cuomo's move sets up a crowded and unpredictable November election. He'll be facing Mamdani, Republican nominee Curtis Silva, a perennial candidate who seems to constantly run for office, and incumbent mayor Eric Adams, who decided to run as an independent knowing he couldn't get the Democratic nomination. Now, Cuomo is wanting them to pledge to drop out if they're not leading in the polls by mid-September. He says he'll keep the pledge himself. He's hoping to consolidate the anti-Mamdani vote. There are other multiple small-name independent candidates in the race, complicating matters as well. Cuomo's strategy is based on the idea that the general electorate is more moderate than the Democratic primary. He's betting that concerns about Mamdani's progressive agenda, like raising taxes on the wealthy and possibly a tax on homeowners in white neighborhoods and free grocery stores and defunding the police, might actually alienate enough people to vote for someone other than Mamdani. Cuomo's also raised significant money and is maintaining a high profile despite his loss in the primary. Now, the Eric Adams campaign has criticized Cuomo's decision to stay in, calling it political double dealing. Meanwhile, Mamdani's campaign says it's a clear choice, a progressive vision for affordability and more. And, well, conservatives, they're going to have to You're going to have a hard choice in New York. Do you hold your nose and vote for Cuomo or Adams or Silva? Or do you just say, it doesn't matter anymore? If Cuomo can consolidate the vote and get these other candidates to take the pledge, he might be able to win, or they might be able to win. Interestingly enough, polls show even among Republicans they would rather vote for Cuomo than Eric Adams. Eric Adams is still battling corruption, even though he got a presidential pardon. The final story is about a tragedy that's raising tough questions for the aviation industry. We've got the preliminary report into the tragic case of the Air India crash, which killed 260 people. Turns out the plane's engines lost power during takeoff. According to investigators, the cockpit fuel control sensors were moved from run to cut off in quick succession within seconds of takeoff, depriving the engines of fuel. The black box recording shows one pilot questioning the other about the cutoff. Neither claimed responsibility. The switches were quickly moved back to the correct position and the engines restarted, but by then it was too late to recover. The engines couldn't pick up enough speed. The plane crashed into a hospital near the airport, killing nearly everybody on board. One person survived. 19 were killed on the ground. Now, the report does not say whether the switches were accidentally flipped or if there was a mechanical failure. Investigators found the plane was properly maintained, the fuel was good, and everything at takeoff seemed to be normal, including the weight within parameters. There's no evidence of bird strikes or hazardous cargo. There's the conversation of the cockpit of the pilot and the pilot and co-pilot arguing over who turned off the engines. Families of the victims are demanding answers and accountability, of course. The airline and regulators are under pressure to determine whether it was human error, a technical glitch, or something else entirely. The investigation's ongoing, and the aviation world is watching for the final report. For everybody else, it's a sobering reminder that even with all the advances in safety, aviation is not risk-free. The hope is that a thorough investigation will lead to changes that prevent another tragedy like this from happening. But first, we have to know, was it intentional? It was clearly a mistake. Was it intentional, or was it mechanical? Neither pilot seemed to know the other had flipped the switch. So who did it, or was it the plane itself? That's what investigators have to find out. These are the 4 things you've got to know this afternoon before you get home. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're really trying to grow YouTube. A lot of conservatives are distancing themselves from YouTube, but I think it's valuable to have a conservative voice there, but it requires people to actually subscribe. Our YouTube channel is located at youtube.com/EW Erickson. I'm Eric Erickson. Until next time, thanks for listening. Stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, please keep the faith.